celebrate. We've got a reason to sing. Our joy is made complete. We've got a reason to clap our hands, move out of our seats and dance. Our joy is made complete. Oh, and we'll walk out of this place, oh, with a smile on our face, talking about the good things that you've done. We'll be dancing in the street, telling everyone we meet about the good things that you've done. We've got a reason to shout your name. Nothing you touch will ever be the same. My joy, it is complete. We've got a reason to feel this way. We're living in the middle of a brand new day. Our joy, it is complete. And we walk out of this place, oh, with a smile on our face, talking about the good things that you've done. You'll find us dancing in the street, oh, telling everyone we meet all about the good things that you've done. Oh, we've seen your loving kindness. We've left the past behind us. Whenever trouble finds us, we'll be praising you. Got a reason to celebrate. We've got a reason to sing. Our joy is made complete. Oh, and we'll walk out of this place with a smile on our face, talking about the good things that you've done. Oh, we've seen your loving kindness. We've seen your loving kindness. We've left the past behind us. Whenever trouble finds us, we'll be praising you. So come on, raise your voice and make a joyful noise. We have been set free. We've got a reason to say. We have seen your kindness and left the past behind us. Whenever trouble finds us, we'll be praising you. We have seen your kindness, oh, and left the past behind us. Whenever trouble finds us, we'll be praising you. out to me. It's leading my heart to your door. And all my regret, it fades with each step. And that's what your mercy is for. Nothing but kindness is all that you've shown. I call you Father, call me your own. When I have wandered, you've welcomed me home. Oh, with nothing but kindness. Oh, your love is quick to forgive. Believes I can be so much more. Oh, in my past, behind me at last. That's what forgiveness is for. Nothing but kindness is all that you've shown. I call you Father, you call me your own. When I have wandered, you've welcomed me home. Oh, with nothing but kindness. There is no mistake I could ever make that could separate your love from me. Every step I take, chains begin to break. Come on, celebrate. Now I am free. All that you've shown. I call you Father, or you call me your own. When I have wandered, welcome me home. Oh, with nothing but kindness. Oh, nothing but kindness. Oh, nothing but kindness. Nothing but kindness is all that you've shown. I call you Father, you call me your own. And when I have wandered, you've welcomed me home. Oh, with nothing but kindness. Oh, nothing but kindness. Oh, nothing but kindness. Oh, nothing but kindness. You know, the fact that God responds to us when we come to Him with kindness is often so unexpected in light of how we think that He might respond to us based on our behavior, our actions, our thoughts. And it's so good to know that God is portrayed over and over as a father waiting to welcome us home. that it can seem like he is so distant, when all the while he is right here with us. In the midst of whatever you're facing today, God is with you. God is facing it with you. He's not far and he's not hard to find. Oh, how high would I climb mountains if the mountains were where you hide? And oh, how far I'd scale the valleys if you graced the other side. And oh, how long have I chased rivers from lonely seas to where they rise, against the rush of grace descending from the source of its supply. As in the highlands and the heartache, you're neither more or less inclined. I would search and stop at nothing. You're just not that hard to find. And I will praise you on the mountain, and I will praise you when the mountain's in my way. You're the summit where my feet are. I will praise you in the valleys all the same. No less God within the shadows, no less faithful when the night leads me astray. You're the heaven where my heart is, in the highlands and the heartache all the same. Oh, how far beneath your glory does your kindness extend the path, from where your feet rest on the sunrise to where you sweep the sinners past. Oh, how fast would you come running if just a shadow be through the night? Trace my steps through all my failure, walk me out the other side. For who could dare ascend that mountain, that valleyed hill called Calvary, but for the one I call Good Shepherd, who like a lamb was slain for me. And I will praise you on the mountain, and I will praise you when the mountain's in my way. You're the summit where my feet are. So I will praise you in the valleys all the same. No less God within the shadows, no less faithful when the night leads me astray. The heaven where my heart is, in the highlands and the heartache all the same. Oh, 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 oh. death, I'll sing through the shadows my song of ascent. Oh, whatever I walk through, whatever I am, your name can move mountains wherever I stand. Oh, and if I ever walk through the valley of death, I'll sing through the shadows my song of ascent. Oh, my song of ascent. Oh, my song of ascent, my song of ascent. From the gravest of all valleys come the pastures we call grace, a mighty river flowing upwards from a deep but empty grave. So I will praise you on the mountain, and I will praise you when the mountain's in my way. You're the summit where my feet are. So I will praise you in the valleys of the same. No less God within the shadows, no less faithful when the night leads me astray. You're the heaven where my heart is, in the highlands and heartache are the same.
Heavenly Father, you know full well that there are so many different things we walk through, so many different seasons that we experience. And there are seasons absolutely where joy is easy to come by and celebration feels really natural for us. There are seasons where it is easy to focus on how good you've been to us. And then there are these other seasons where adversity after adversity seems to follow us, where trials are plentiful, where joy is not easy to come by. And we're very aware of what is not right in our lives. And yet, you are the God who wants us to be emotionally honest, to come to you just as we are. But you're the God who, your presence changes us. And so this morning, I pray that we would have this desire to remember how good you have been to us, that we would focus on areas that we can express gratitude in, that we would choose to find hope in how loving and how gracious you've been to us, that we would spend time in our mental energy actually focusing ourselves on your goodness. And at the same time, if we're walking through those valleys that feel like they're full of despair or darkness, we would recognize that you're the God who does not leave us no matter the season we're in. That you're the God who actually does some of the most beautiful things through the gravest valleys that we face, and that no matter the shadows that we're in the midst of, you're no less God, you're no less powerful, you're no less full of the ability to transform circumstances for our growth and our good. And so today, we ask that you would fill us with hope, not in our ability to fix things around us, but in your presence in our lives, with the peace that you can bring us, and the things that you want to do through the circumstances and the seasons that we face. Heavenly Father, thank you for being the God who brings us hope and freedom and joy and peace and your love that never fails us. We want to be wrapped up in that. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Good morning, everybody. Hey, welcome to Terra Nova. My name is Scott, and I'm so glad that you're with us today. We're going to have a great time together. Before you take a seat, I got a question for you today. And my question is this. I wonder if you think about the last time you moved and when was it? For some of you go, hey, I moved recently. Some of you, it's been decades since you moved. Maybe you move often, but what I'd love to have you do right now is turn to somebody nearby, say, hey, introduce yourself, and ask them, when was the last time that you moved? Go ahead. All righty. What a great weekend.
When's the last time you moved, Scott?
Last time I moved was about 9 years ago, 10 years ago.
9 years ago.
Yeah,
Okay.
9 years ago.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. For a while it was move after move, but it's been a bit now.
Okay, you're settled.
Great crew in here today.
Definitely.
Let's see if we get a little participation. Hey, last time you moved, I want to see people. It has been more than 2 decades since you moved. Anybody in here? Well, yeah, there we go. Very good.
That's good.
Anybody, you go, hey, it's been like 5 to 10 years. You're in that range since the move.
Okay.
Anybody move within the last year or so? Anybody? There's a few.
Oh,
Very
yeah.
good. Anybody move this month? Anybody move this month?
That would be me. I'm in that category. I'm in that category, Scott. Yeah.
This guy,
Okay.
this guy just moved this
Yeah.
month. This is Austin Castela. Many of you guys know Austin is joining our staff team.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
He just got here. Speaking of a move, you guys moved within the last week and a half or so.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, we
we
did.
are so happy to have Austin, his wife Raisa, their
Yeah.
daughter Sienna, and just being here at the Terra Nova community. And so I would love it if we put our hands together and just welcome them this morning.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Thanks, Scott, so much. My wife and I were so excited to be here. And over the years, we visiting Terra Nova. We've just loved being a part of the community here and Terra Nova's mission to make God's love famous here in Orange County and to the ends of the earth. And now that we're here full time, we're looking forward to being with everyone here.
Absolutely. So we're stoked to have him. You're like, Austin, was it Castela? That's a familiar last name. Terra Nova has always been Austin's like church, and we're just excited to have him and the family with us, and can't wait for y'all to connect. And speaking of that connection, make sure you overwhelm this guy with saying hi, introducing yourself, and make sure he remembers your name immediately, right? Do that.
Okay.
That'll be totally easy. But connect with
yourself
Austin,
memorable.
with his family over these weeks to come. Make sure that they're feeling really welcomed as they dive in here at Terra Nova. And speaking of being welcome, hey, if you're here and you're a guest, maybe you've been a couple times, maybe it's your first time with us today, we're just so grateful that you're spending part of your Sunday with us. There's a million things you could be doing, and we hope that you have a wonderful experience with us here at Terra Nova. Probably one of the first things that happened as you came through the door is hopefully you're offered one of these programs. We use this to communicate what's going on, what's coming up here at Terra Nova. If you got it, you could take this guy out. You're going to see a number of different things in here. We'll touch on a few in just a moment. But what we'd love to have you do is make your way to the very back of this program. Here's where we start. This is called our Connect card, and so you can find that.
And
Austin,
the
what
Connect
we're doing.
card is great. What you can do is you can just grab that, and I've always wanted to do this on stage, is to tear it off. There's something so satisfying about tearing off the Connect card. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this close to the mic so we can hear it too. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, well, that was good. So if you're new here, we'd love to get this from you so we can just thank you for being here and answer any questions that you may have. It's also a great way for people here to put their prayer requests or just what's going on in your life so that we can know how to support you. So yeah, and we'll grab this from you at the end of the gathering.
Yeah, so everybody every week spend some time working on this. Like Austin said, we'll get it from you later on, and can't wait just to connect with you. But as Austin's coming on, one of the things that's going on our staff team as well is that as he's joining, 2 of our longtime pastors, Lyle and Dana Castelaw, they're actually winding down their time here with us at Terra Nova.
I know them.
And so we are going, hey, have you met them? Make sure you remember their names.
Yeah, I'll try.
One of the things that we want to do is do the best job we can of celebrating them, of honoring them, of letting them know our love for them in this moment and in the weeks to come as well. And so what we're going to be doing that we've actually got a little info about in your program is a special night coming up in just a few weeks. It's called Christmas with the Castelaws. Cute name, right? No, you love it.
Castelaw.
It's coming up on
I'll be there.
Sunday, December 7th, and it's going to be a great time. We're going to have some Christmas carols. We're going to have lots of celebration, ways to honor them, reflect on memories. We'll have some time in here, and that'll be followed by a taco cart, little reception, great food. And so it's just going to be a really fun night. I hope that you'll be a part of it. You'll be joining us for that. And if you're going, hey, I want to be a part of the team that's making that a really great celebration, what you can do with that Connect card that you're working on is you can just write Castelaws somewhere on there, and we'll get you in play for that. Again, it's coming up in a few weeks, Sunday, December 7th. And so I hope that you'll be a part of that and even jumping in and being a part of that team.
Yeah, well, again, thank you so much for being here this weekend at Terra Nova, and we're so glad you're here. And we're going to be diving into part 3 of our series, reassembly required.
Well, hey, good morning. How you guys doing? Fantastic. Great to see you. And as the guys just said, we're in part 3 of a series called Reassembly Required. The subtitle is A Beginner's Guide to Repairing Broken Relationships. It's just a beginner's guide because we could talk about this for a really long time. We could do seminars on this. There are books written on this. And in fact, there's some books we're recommending for this series because this really is just the beginner's guide. And I've got a list of recommended reading on the back of your notes. You can pull out this white sheet of paper and follow along today. It's on the app as well. Books that I would highly recommend on this whole topic because really this is just a beginner's guide over these 4 weeks of repairing broken relationships. And it's a series, again, that's all about relationships, which really are, I was talking to some people, like the most important and often the most difficult things in life. Isn't that true? And this is a series specifically about relationships when they get difficult or damaged or broken. And all relationships get difficult, don't they? And how to make difficult or damaged or broken relationships better or potentially maybe even healthy again, which we've been saying throughout the series does not come naturally or easily. The relationships are kind of like cars. Like we are so much better at starting them than fixing them, yes. And consequently, when they get really difficult, often we're tempted to get rid of them and just start some new ones, right? And one of the things that makes repairing damaged relationships so hard, we said in week 1, is that repairing damaged relationships requires humility. It requires humility, like the steps and the skills and just the mindset and the processes necessary to deal with difficult relationships and damaged relationships and make them healthy again. It requires, we've been saying, like just amazing levels, ego-threatening, boot-shaking, unfair, like totally unfair amounts of humility. And it requires this of us in the very moments when we feel threatened and challenged and we want to bow up and power up. And repairing damaged relationships again and again requires us to power down. And that is certainly true of the very first step and the first skill of reassembling broken relationships that we talked about last week, namely cleaning up our own side of the street. Starting by cleaning up our own side of the street. Here's how we put it last week, that reconciliation, repairing damaged relationships always starts with us, regardless of who started the fuss. And from the very outset, if we can't get ourselves right to begin with, if we can't get ourselves right, we won't get the repair right. We will not get the conversation right. And so last week, we talked about taking a good, hard look at ourselves before we do anything else, asking questions like, hey, how have I contributed to the damage? How have I contributed to this, either before the fact or during the fact or maybe after the fact? Yeah, they started the fuss, but I kind of added some fuss to it, and I've been a part of that, maybe even unknowingly. And last week we were introduced to this idea of collusion. Like, have I been a part of some, you do X and then I do Y, and then you do X and I do Y, blame and bad acting and self-justification cycle? Have I been a part of something like that? And I have to begin with myself, which requires so much humility in the moment to recognize my contribution, or I will continue to contribute to it and wonder why it doesn't get fixed and nothing gets better, and it must be their fault. And so the motto when it comes to reassembling relationships, the motto is always work on me first and us second. Work on me first, us second, me first, and then us second. But here's how we ended last week. That second part, that us second part, boy, that's a can of worms, right? Because that's going to require a conversation. And the conversation about us and what's going on between us or what keeps happening or the damage between us, that has the potential to be a difficult, maybe even messy conversation, especially given all the things that have already happened in our relationship. Even if I do begin, as we talked about last week, owning my contribution, I recognize I've been contributing to this. And so we ended last week with this question like, how do we have that conversation? Okay, so owning my stuff, I got it. How do we have that? How can we talk about difficult things? How do we have tough conversations? How do we talk about difficult things without making things worse? Because we have all tried to repair something and broke it worse after, like when opinions and perspectives differ and emotions get involved and the ego starts to feel threatened. How do we have that conversation? And part of what makes all of this really complicated is that we don't really process conflict the same way. None of it, like when conversations get tough, we don't process that the same way. And part of this is just personality, and part of it is our families of origin and our childhood and what we grew up with. And some of us are like the peacekeepers. You know who you are, the peacekeepers, right? And they don't even argue. They don't even argue. They're like, whatever, never mind. Is everyone okay? Just, is everyone okay? And trying to resolve something with a peacekeeper, it's difficult because they won't push back and they won't really tell you what they're thinking. They may hint at it, how they think and how they feel, but they don't want conflict. Like, no, I'm fine. Everything fine, we're fine. And you know it's not really fine. And then there's the sulkers. Maybe you're one, maybe you know one. And the way you communicate conflict is just by being down. Just down, kind of in a mood, or maybe pouting a little bit, or you're just kind of down, even after the conflict's over, or they think it's over. And they're like, are you okay? Are you okay? I was like, oh, I'm fine. And if we could be honest, this is sometimes kind of a passive-aggressive way of getting people to lean into us, to come and lean into us. No, I'm fine. And then there are the stuffers. The stuffers, they just stuff it all inside. Forget it. I'm sorry I even brought anything up. You know what? Forget it. Never mind. I don't want to fight. And it's stewing inside, and you know it's going to come out. Because if you're married to one or you work with, you know it's going to, like 3 months later, like, oh, there it is. Okay, now we're getting it. Now it's happening. There's the stuffers, and then there are the litigators. And oh boy, the litigators are just the best arguers. They are the debaters, right? They are very verbal. You never have to tell a litigator to use their words. They got words. They got words, they got PowerPoint slides, they got reasons, and then this, and then that point, and they argue their point, and they look for flaws in yours, and flaws in your words, and weaknesses in your argument, and they're not listening to understand and get mutual, they're listening for ammunition, they're listening to win. And if you're a litigator, the people in your life, they do not like to fight with you, they do not like to argue with you. Sometimes they don't really even like to have a conversation where people might have different ideas, because you're just going to win. You're going to win. You're going to go for the win, even if you're wrong, even if you know you're wrong. Even if halfway through your litigation you realize, I might be wrong. Are you going to stop the argument and admit that? Oh, no, because if they can't prove it in a court of law, maybe you're not wrong at all. If they haven't seen the flaw yet, you're not going to expose, like the litigators, you know who you are. Then there are the screamers. The screamers, like the venters, and you know who, like they just let it all out. They let it all out. They're very expressive. They scream, and I'm not yelling. And they're like, and it's the volume and the words. And if this was your family culture growing up, and some of us grew up in this kind of family culture where people just vented, I mean, they just let it all hang out. Chances are you married one of the other ones, like you married a peacekeeper or something, and then your first real argument after you got married, right? And you're just used to everybody just getting it all out on the table and then walking away, and people are okay, or at least they act like they're okay. And so you yelled and you let some words fly, and your spouse looked at you like, foul demon, come out. You know, they're like, what? Where did that come from? My sweet wife, my husband. Because they didn't grow up in that kind of, that's not their thing, right? And then there are the ice makers. And the ice makers, their mode of battle is just freeze them out. I'm just talking to freeze them out. It's like this passive aggressive punishing. I'm gonna punish you by ignoring you. I'm gonna punish you by detaching from the relationship. Silent treatment, cold shoulder. I'm not gonna talk to you, and I'll let you know how wrong you are with silence. And then you'll feel bad. And then you'll learn your lesson. And so like all these different kinds of styles, and probably many more, but all of them are related in some form or another to what we met in the week 1 of our series, the C4 approach to relationship management: convince, convict, coerce, control. Convince, convict, coerce, and control, which we know never brings people together. It never resolves or repairs a relationship or an issue. And yet we find ourselves reaching for those familiar tools that maybe we grew up with, with or we've used for years, even when it blows up in our face. And as a result, when talking turns tough, when a conversation is difficult, we often resort to what the authors of Crucial Conversations, one of the books I recommend for the series, refers to as the fool's choice. And the fool's choice in a tough conversation is the choice between silence or violence, or we might say between grace or truth, between kindness or candor. Either I'm going to bite my tongue and just keep my peace and it's not even worth it, and we're going to avoid it, we're going to avoid the topic and say nothing, or I'm going to act out and speak out, often in very blunt, kind of either winning or punishing kinds of ways. Now, today, this is so interesting to me. I want to talk about a principle. I love this principle. It's so very practical. Even though there are many different styles of conflict and ways that we go about conflict and fighting, there's really one primary source to all of our conflict. And this is so important to me because if we can begin to see beneath our conflict and what's going on, I believe it will change the way that we fight, and it probably will even change what we really fight about. And to get at this, I want to take a look at the words from Jesus' brother, James. James was well known outside of the Bible, actually in history. He was the leader of the Jesus community, or the church, if you will, in Jerusalem, which was like the mothership of the Jesus movement in the early days. And he was the leader there during an extremely volatile time in Jerusalem. It would shortly after his death, the city would blow up in revolution and civil war. And James was kind of known outside of the Bible, by the way, as kind of like the Martin Luther King Jr. of his day. He was this well-known, very respected proponent of peace and justice. His nickname was James the Just. And like Martin Luther King Jr., he was killed for his efforts in the 60s, but not the 1960s, the OG 60s, the original 60s. And so that's James, and he writes this letter shortly before he's killed, by the way, and to Christians in his communities, and he introduces us to this profound principle. Now, the context of this principle is he's talking about wisdom from the perspective of the Hebrew scriptures that he was steeped in, and what it means to be really smart. And he sets this up with like a baiting question, like, hey, who out there is smart? Like, where are my people at? Where are my smart people? Where are the wise people? Show of hands, right? And then he says, well, okay, if that's you, then show it. If you think you're wise, show it by good deeds done in the humility that comes from wisdom. And that wisdom expresses itself relationally through humility. There's our word. Real wisdom expresses itself relationally through humility, because really smart people, wise people, know how much they do not know. They are very keen on how limited they really are. Like, I may not have all the facts. I probably don't understand it from their perspective. I might be wrong. And wise people are humble people. But then he says, but if you harbor envy and selfish ambition, in other words, always comparing and always competing, needing to win, and especially needing the other person not to win, when those traits exist in you, you will have disorder around you. When those things exist in you, you will always have disorder around you. You will always have conflict around you. But he says, real wisdom that comes from God, it's selfless, it's humble, it's pure, it loves peace, it loves relational wholeness, it's considerate and submissive. And it's this big idea of mutual submission. Wise people are so good at this idea of mutual submission that says, no, you first. No, I want what you like. What about your needs? I want what's best for you. Well, I want what's best for you. Like, what can I do for you? How can I help you? Full of this mutual submission, considerate, submissive, full of mercy, empathy, consideration for the other, good fruit, impartial, sincere, which means it's authentic. They're just real, authentic people. In other words, truly wise people with God's kind of wisdom. The wisdom comes from heaven, God's kind of wisdom. They are relationally wise. They are relationally intelligent. And it's in that context that James makes this next amazing statement, this big idea. And again, he begins it with a question. So what causes wars and fights among you? What causes conflict among you? Now, I thought about how fun it would be to have you turn to the people you came with and discuss the answer, give you a minute to discuss your answer to this question. Hey, what causes wars and fights among us? But the problem is, wars and fights would break out among us, right? Because when you turn to your spouse or your teenager or your roommate, your mom, and you ask, like, what causes all the conflict among us? Before it's over, you'll be pointing at each other saying, you cause all the conflict among us. And that's what we do. We point to the other person. They're the cause. They're the problem. And we go into blame. If they would just change, if they would just get a clue, if they wouldn't do what you don't want them to do, if they would lay off, if they would only stop, if they would only start, if they would only follow through, then we wouldn't have any conflict. We would be fine if they saw things the way I see them, which, of course, as we said in week 1, is the right way. So what does cause wars and conflicts between us? When talking turns tough and we get emotional and we get defensive and we feel threatened and we start resorting to silence or violence, where does it come from? What's going on there? And then he answers the question, and this is so profound. He says, don't they come from your desires that battle within you? To which we'd say, no. No, they come from something within them. What are you talking about? Me? No, the cause is something within them. And James would say, well, they have it in them too. But it's something that's within you, your desires. Your desires, there are things that you want, maybe even desperately want. Now, in recovery, years ago, I was exposed to an idea that just kind of rocked me at the time, and we had exercises that were all built around it, and it shaped my thinking on conflict and on my own patterns ever since. And the idea is this, that way beneath the surface, often beneath the conscious surface of our most dysfunctional behaviors and most dysfunctional reactions and most disruptive emotions are two unseen, often unconscious forces, our desires and our fears. Our desires and our fears. There are things we want and there are things that we're afraid of. There are things that we want and things that we're afraid of, secretly conflicting, battling within us, secretly driving these dysfunctional emotions and reactions and behaviors that we ourselves consciously don't even understand. Like, I don't understand where that came from. I don't understand why that keeps happening, that we don't actually understand or even want. And here's how James put it. You desire, but you do not have. You desire, in other words, in every conflict, think about it, even the secret ones that you have in your head that the other people don't even know about, in every conflict, in every one of those battles, you want something. And you're not getting what you want, or you're afraid or concerned that you won't get what you want. In other words, for James, the cause of conflict is simple. We want something, and we're not getting it. We want something, we're not. You know what the problem is around here? You know what the problem is? I'm not getting what I want. How would that change the fight? And then the other person goes, oh yeah? Well, you know what another part of the problem is? I'm not getting what I want either. Now, you're like, hold on, John. Are you saying we shouldn't get what we want? No, not saying that. Are you saying it's wrong to want things? It's wrong to, I shouldn't want anything from the relationship? Nope, not saying that either. But simply put, when you think about it, the cause of our conflict really is we want something. Or maybe some things. We want things that may not have been thoroughly articulated. We may know that we want things that we maybe aren't even quite aware of. There are things that we want, and there are fears that we have, and things that we're afraid of not getting, and what will happen if, and this continues. There are things that we want, and there are things that we are afraid of, which begs the question. So, what do I want? I got all these desires, and they're way down in there, and all deep beneath the surface of all these things that keep happening. What do I want? What do I want? Now, there are a bunch of very smart men and women who got together not too long ago, and they came up with a list. It's a list of what a child would need to experience and receive throughout their childhood in order to enter adulthood fully equipped to engage in happy and healthy and strong and mutual mature relationships. And the list they created looked like this right here. They would need respect, encouragement, comfort, security, support, acceptance, approval, appreciation, attention, and affection. And the idea was if a child grew up in that kind of environment, that's what they were receiving, that they would enter adulthood with such whole and healthy hearts, so filled with respect, encouragement, comfort, security, support, acceptance, approval, appreciation, attention, and affection, that loving people and attaching well and boundaries and trust and all of these kinds of things would just kind of come easily and naturally to them. But does that sound like your childhood? That your entire childhood, your family of origin, your school experience, your peers, that all you ever received was respect, encouragement, comfort, security, support, acceptance, approval, appreciation, and attention, and affection? Like, no, probably not, right? We've all been rejected, disrespected, disapproved of, shamed, sometimes by very important people in our lives, unappreciated, unnoticed, taken advantage of, left out, abandoned, maybe even abused, more times than we can even count. And as a result, we all enter our adulthood with a deficit, looking for people who will give us this. What do I want? Well, I want respect and encouragement, comfort, security, support, acceptance, approval, appreciation, attention, and affection. And I want that from my family, and I want that from my wife, and I want it from my kids, I want it from my coworkers, I want it from my tribe, my peers, my friends. I want respect, encouragement, comfort, security, support, acceptance, approval, appreciation, attention, affection. That's what I want. But that's not all I want. See, I want people around me to agree with me. I want I want the people around me to reflect my values, to see things my way, to do the things I want them to do. I want them to act the way I think they should act, keep things clean, put the dishes in the dishwasher, prioritize the things I think are important. And I want respect, encouragement, comfort, security, support, acceptance, approval, appreciation, attention, and affection. That's what I want. But that's not all I want. I want to be impressive. I want people to look up to me and admire me. I want my family to look good for me. I want my kids to become the men and women that I imagine them to be. And I want the people around me to agree with me, reflect my values, see things my way, do what I want them to do, act the way I want them to act, keep things clean, put the dishes in the dishwasher, prioritize the things that I think important. And I want respect, encouragement, comfort, security, support, acceptance, approval, appreciation, attention, and affection. That's what I want. But that's not all I want. See, I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it. I want to spend what I want to spend on what I want to spend it on. I want to be able to be selfish. And I want the people closest to me to be really excited about that. Like really happy for me. Oh, that's what you're going to do this weekend. Fantastic. High five, John. I want autonomy and intimacy. I want people to leave me alone and be close to me. I want pleasure and stuff and immediate gratification, and I want significance and long-term happiness and meaning in my life. I want to please God, and I want to please me. I want things I don't even know I want. I want things that I don't want to want. I want things that I lie to myself about wanting, and I want things that are in conflict with other things that I want. I'm a mess. Like I'm way down under there. I'm like this conflicted mess, and James says, yes, you are. Yes, you are, and that's the cause of your conflicts. You have desires that are battling in you. Desires, there are things you want that you don't even know you want, and there are things that you're afraid of and concerned about not getting or what will happen if, and they are at war within you. And that war within you comes spilling out of you and with the people around you. You desire, but you're not getting what you want. You desire, but you do not have, and so you kill. You kill. Now, James, understand, he's talking to Jesus' followers in his community, not to people in prison and death row inmates. This is hyperbole. But this is part of the picture of going to war with people, isn't it? Like, think about what happens sometimes when talking turns tough and the verbal or just the emotional, and yes, sometimes even the physical violence that we can bring out into a conflict, nagging and coercing and convicting and shaming and punishing and attacking and yelling and cold shouldering and freezing and insulting and avoiding and canceling people. Like we can end up, and you know this is true, hurting or even destroying the people and the relationships that we would say, or at least at some point in our life would have said, are the people and relationships we care about most. You desire, but you do not have, and so you kill. You covet. Now, covet is like desire with a side of envy. Covet is like desire with a side of like, but I should have. Are you telling me I shouldn't have? And I should. Why should they? Why should they have that? Why should they win and not me? You covet, but you don't get what you want, and so you fight and battle. And this is what happens when talking turns tough. When talking turns tough, when we feel threatened and challenged, and our desires and fears are colliding way beneath the surface, physiologically, what happens is there's a cocktail of sometimes what are called fight and flight hormones or chemicals that are dumped into the bloodstream of our bodies, and we can feel our pressure rising and our bodies tensing up. And what happens is it shuts down higher brain functions right when you need them the most. And adrenaline and fear start to do our thinking for us. But adrenaline and fear are dumb. They don't think very well. And consequently, when it matters most, we are often mentally and physiologically at our worst, primed not for intelligent conversation and being wise, but instead primed for fight or flight, for violence or silence. And I know I need to talk to you about something. I know I do. I know we need to talk. There's an underlying issue, an important one, maybe a really difficult one that needs to be addressed. But it seems like when we talk, it just goes so badly. And so I end up making the fool's choice. I either avoid it and avoid it and avoid it, and we're not going to talk about it, or I come crashing in like a bull in a china shop, pulling out the C4. And James is giving us this brilliant insight in pointing to where the source of all of this conflict is. He's also giving us a hint at where to start. The very first skill for talking when talking turns tough, when desires and fears are colliding way beneath the surface and we don't even see it, when talking turns tough, stay focused on what you really want. Stay focused on what you really want. In other words, get crystal clear. As clear as you can be, write it down if you need to, on what you really want. Think it through. What matters most? What matters most in this conversation? What do I really want? Be aware of the desires and fears that might sabotage what you want and what you might be afraid of, and stay focused on what matters most, on what you really want. The strange thing about those unseen, unknown desires and fears, the strange thing about it is how quickly they can derail for us from what we thought we really wanted. And all of a sudden, we have gone in a completely other direction. The authors of the book, Crucial Conversations, which I mentioned to you earlier, they tell a story, true story, about two young sisters, and I think the dad in the story is actually one of the authors. And what happens after a sweltering day at Disneyland, and we all know what that's like, and the girls, these two little girls have consumed massive amounts of soda. They get to the hotel room, and both of them just head straight to the bathroom. They are bursting, they gotta go, and a fight breaks out. Who will go first? Who needs to go more badly than the other? Well, how badly? How do you know how badly? I need to go more than you. Like, how do you know? And a fight breaks, and neither of them can wait, and they're doing the pee-pee dance, and they're yelling at each other, and they're calling each other, and they're telling the dad to tell the other one that they need to go first. And so the dad tells them both to go into the bathroom, close the door, and that they would stay in there until they work it out. And so they go in, they close the door, and he can hear them arguing and sniping, and they're yelling, and they're not going to the bathroom. And it's like, so he checks his watch. He's just wondering how long it'll take for them to do this. And the minutes slowly tick away. And there's silence on the other side of the door with bursts of violence, like snarky and sarcasm and name calling, and then silence again. 25 minutes later, he hears the toilet flush. One of the girls comes walking out. A minute later, the toilet flushes again. The other one comes walking out. And the dad is like, he's just like befuddled and amazed and a little amused. Like, do you girls have any idea how many times you could have both gone to the bathroom in the amount of time that it took you to work that out? But apparently, that hadn't occurred to them. And though they both would have sworn up and down across their heart that what they wanted most was to go to the bathroom, it turned out that wasn't all they really wanted. It turned out that apparently they wanted to win. Or maybe more importantly, they wanted to make sure the other one didn't win, that the other person didn't go first more than they actually wanted to go to the bathroom. And it's such a great example because it's kind of funny and amusing and we can picture it, but it's such a great example of how we, in the moment, when we feel threatened, in a tough conversation, how we can let petty, selfish, fear-based desires win that battle within us and override our deeper, better, like truer, healthier desires, causing our motives and our focus to deteriorate in the conversation, ultimately sabotaging the thing that we would have said we really want. And that's why when talking turns tough, when I'm going into a difficult conversation, it's essential to know your desires and your fears. It's essential to know what you want most, what you want most. And as the conversation becomes difficult, and it probably will, stay focused that whole time on what you really want. And once again, reassembly starts with us. Once again, reassembly starts with us, regardless of who started the fuss. I need to get me right. Before this conversation, I need to get my desires right. I need to get my wants right, my motives right, or it will be very difficult to get the conversation right. So, what do I really want? What do I want most in this conversation? What do I want? What do I really want? What do I want for myself? What do I want for the other person? What's best for them? What do I want for the relationship? What do I want now? In this conflict, in this issue, what's the most important outcome? And what do I want ultimately? To mix my metaphors, when I pull back the image and widen the view to get the bigger picture, what does that look like? When I look down the road to the long haul of this relationship, when I dig way down deep to my deepest, most important desires, what do I want most? What's most important that I shouldn't lose focus of? And I'll give you just a few examples for myself. Here's some of the ways that I've answered this question. Like, what do I want most? So for example, decades ago, I decided that what I wanted most from my wife and for our marriage is I wanted to have a great marriage that lasted a lifetime. I wanted to have a great marriage that lasted a lifetime, and I wanted to be the kind of husband who would have a great marriage that would last a lifetime. Whatever other conflicts, whatever other things we needed to work out, whatever other things are happening in the relationship, that desire has held sway over all the other desires. All of these things, yes, get it, there are things I want, but I want a great marriage that lasts a lifetime. And then about 15 or more years ago, when our kids were becoming teenagers, when it came to our parenting, my wife and I decided that what we really wanted most from our parenting is to have a great relationship with our adult kids. Like stuff is gonna happen now. There's a lot of things we wanted for our kids, and there are a lot of things we wanted from our kids. But we decided very early into that stage of parenting that what was gonna be more important, what we really wanted most, is to make sure however we did this, at the end of the game, we had a decades-long great relationship with our adult kids. I want a community of great friends where I have their back and they have my back. I want this community to truly, truly, actually follow Jesus, the real Jesus, and love our world well and reach our world well. I want to hear my Heavenly Father someday say, "Well done, good and faithful servant." And there are all kinds of desires I might have that would compete with, collide with, and sabotage all of those desires. But there are things that I want more. And there are things that I want. There are things that I want now. There are things that I want in various relationships and conflicts that might occur. And then there are things that I really, really, really want. And I don't ever want to let pettier, selfish, momentary, fear-based wants and desires destroy the things that I really, really want for myself and for others and for my relationships. And so I need to know this. If possible, I need to know this going into a tough conversation. Like, what do I really want here? What's the best possible outcome? What do I really want from this conversation in this moment for myself, for others, for the relationship? And at the same time, what do I want over the long haul? What do I want most in the journey of this relationship? And I want to make sure that however this goes, it doesn't sabotage that. And I need to get as clear as I can get before I go in. And then, as the conversation evolves and devolves, and you know it might, in moments where tensions start to rise with the other person or with me, I need to keep bringing myself back to this. What do I really want? Hold on. What do I really want here? To win or go to the bathroom? Like, what's the most important outcome? Now, if possible, listen, that is super smart to figure out before you go into a conversation, but you well know sometimes difficult conversations happen to us without warning. All of a sudden, we find ourselves in one like, oh, I've got tension building up in me. There's something going on between us. And in those cases, I need to do this exercise kind of on the fly. I see my behaviors, my emotions, and my motives start deteriorating into silence and violence. I find myself feeling threatened, and I need to pause and ask myself, hold on, what do I really want? What do I want? And what am I afraid of? What do I want and what do I really want? What am I afraid of? And what are the lesser, conflicting, petty wants that might actually sabotage something so much better? When talking turns tough, stay focused on what you really want. Get as clear about it as you can and keep bringing yourself back to what I really want. But this is important. I'm not the only one in the conversation with desires and fears. I'm not the only one in the conversation who's not aware of their desires and fears, who has desires at war beneath the surface of their lives. I'm not the only one with desires and fears that might completely derail them even if they have better intentions. I'm not the only one whose brain locks up and whose behavior deteriorates when I find myself feeling threatened or challenged, which any conflict can easily leave me feeling that way. And the best at communication, the wisest, the most relationally intelligent among us when talking turns tough, they are not only good at keeping themselves from getting sabotaged by those lesser drives and fears, they're actually good at keeping other people from being sabotaged as well, from getting sidetracked and derailed by their own desires and fears. They're able to, in the words of the Apostle Paul that we looked at in week 1 of the series, they're able to do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, this desire, this drive to win and defeat the other and bow up over them, but rather in humility. They're able to down escalate those emotions and value the other person above themselves, treat them with respect, even if they're not behaving respectfully, not looking to their own interests, but actually looking in the middle of a conflict, looking to the other person's interests as well, to seek, to understand, and to actually value what the other person might be needing or wanting from the relationship and from the conversation. And when they do that, when wise people who are good at communication, when they do that, when they learn in the middle of a tough conversation, in the middle of talking about what they really want, when they learn to discover and value what the other person might really want as well, what they end up doing is they make it safe to talk about almost anything. They make it safe to talk about almost anything. And how we do that and what to do when it's not working, that is where we're going to pick the series up next week in part 4 of Reassembly Required. Now, I would like to close this in prayer, and I would like us to bring to mind some of those relationships and have a conversation briefly with God about that. But when I'm done closing in prayer, I would love to ask you to hold on tight because I'm going to give us an update on our love challenge for those of you who have been around for a few weeks and where we're at with it. So before I do that, let me close this in prayer. And again, maybe bring to mind, I know some of you are like, there's some tough relationships. There's some people I'm not getting along with. There's some conversations I probably need to have. I don't want to have. I want to avoid. Heavenly Father, as we think about these relationships, and you value our relationships so much because you love us and you love them. So we just want to pray that you would give us eyes to see some of those things going on deep down inside that we're not aware of. Would you give us clarity on what really matters most? What matters most to you? What matters most eternally? What matters most in the relationship? Would you give us the grace and the eyes to see what matters most? And would you give us the courage and wisdom to not resort to silence and violence, but to actually step into a conversation that values the other person and yet gets really clear and stays focused on what we really want. I just pray for the grace for that. I pray for the wisdom and grace for my friends here. In Jesus' name, amen.
There's a